In the world of Richard Montgomery, perfection wasn't just a goal, it was a requirement. As the CEO of Montgomery Global, he controlled billions of dollars, thousands of employees, and the skyline of New York City. But there was one thing Richard couldn't control, and it was sitting right across from him: his 10-year-old son, Lucas. The silence in Manhattan's most exclusive restaurant was so heavy it felt like it could crush bone. Richard sat like a king, checking his watch, while Lucas sat opposite him, looking small and sad. "Sit up straight, Lucas," Richard said without looking up from his phone. "People are watching." Lucas's voice trembled as he adjusted his position. "I'm trying, Dad. The braces, they hurt today." Richard finally looked up, his eyes cold. "Pain is mental. We've discussed this. Don't let them see you weak." 2 years ago, a car accident took Richard's wife and took Lucas's ability to walk without heavy metal braces. Since then, Richard hadn't looked at his son with love. He looked at him like a problem to be fixed. The live piano began playing a soft, melodic waltz, and for the first time in 730 days, an impulse broke through Lucas's fear. He watched Diana, the restaurant's only black waitress, clearing a nearby table while humming along to the music. "Dad." "Music," Lucas whispered. "Eat your dinner, Lucas," Richard commanded, but Lucas didn't eat. He pushed his chair back, the metal screech of his leg braces against the polished floor sounding like a gunshot in the quiet room. Every head turned as Lucas dragged his legs slowly, drag, click, until he reached Diana. "Excuse me, miss," he asked, shaking. Diana turned, smiling warmly. "Hi there, sweetie, can I get you something?" Lucas took a deep breath. May I have this dance?" Time seemed to stop. The fork halfway to Richard's mouth froze. The patrons gasped. A disabled boy asking a waitress to dance in a place where a salad cost $50 wasn't just unusual. To them, it was a disturbance. Before Diana could answer, Mr. Thornton, the manager, stormed over like a hawk spotting prey. "What is the meaning of this? Diana, step away from the customer," he hissed. Diana tried to explain. "He just asked a question, Mr. Thornton." But the manager sneered, looking down at the boy. "Sir, control your child immediately. This is a 5-star establishment, not a circus. And you, Diana, get back to the kitchen. We are not here to entertain children." Richard stood up, his face red with embarrassment. "Lucas, sit down now. You're embarrassing yourself." Lucas began to cry, his head dropping in shame, humiliated by his own father. But Diana Johnson had seen enough. She took a deep breath, looking from the terrified boy to the arrogant billionaire, and slowly untied her apron. "No," she said firmly. Thornton blinked. "Excuse me, if you don't move, you're fired." Diana folded the apron neatly on the table. "You can't fire me, Mr. Thornton, because I quit." She turned her back on the manager and knelt down to Lucas's eye level. "I would be honored to dance with you, Lucas." Richard stepped forward aggressively. "Do not touch my son. We are leaving." Diana looked Richard dead in the eye. "He asked for a dance, sir, not permission to exist." She took Lucas's hand, not pulling him, but waiting. She matched her steps to his struggle. Step, drag, step, drag. It wasn't a perfect waltz. It was a struggle. But on Lucas's face, a smile broke through the tears. For 3 minutes, the most powerful man in New York was rendered powerless, watching his son's face transform from shame to pure, radiant joy. When the music stopped, Diana bowed to Lucas like he was a king. Richard grabbed Lucas's wheelchair aggressively and started pushing him out, signaling Diana to follow him outside. On the street next to his sleek black Bentley, Richard shouted, "Hey, you wait!" Diana stopped on the sidewalk. "My name is Diana, not you." Richard waved a hand dismissively. "I don't care what your name is. Look, you have a talent. My son hasn't smiled in 2 years. I want to hire you." Diana laughed bitterly. "Hire me as what, a clown?" Richard stepped closer. "A companion, a nanny, name your price, 5,000 a month, 10,000, I can write a check right now, just fix him." Richard thought money was the universal language, but he didn't realize he was speaking to a woman who couldn't be bought. Diana stepped closer, her eyes blazing. "Fix him? He isn't a broken toaster, Mr. Montgomery. He is a lonely little boy. He doesn't need a nurse. He needs a father who stops looking at his legs and starts looking at his face." Richard was stunned. "How dare you?" Diana shoved a crumpled business card into his hand. "I'm not a nanny. If you actually give a damn about his recovery, his real recovery, bring him to this address. Tomorrow at 4 p.m., don't be late, and don't bring your checkbook." She walked away into the night, leaving Richard stunned on the pavement. Lucas looked up at his father, clutching the memory of the dance, and asked softly, "Dad, are we going?" The next day, Richard's Bentley rolled through the Bronx. Graffiti covered the walls, and the pavement was cracked. Richard looked uncomfortable, muttering, "This is ridiculous. We're turning back." But Lucas pleaded, "Please, Dad, just one look." Richard had spent his life building towers in Manhattan, looking down on neighborhoods like this, but the desperation in his son's voice made him keep driving. They entered a run-down warehouse, expecting a daycare. Instead, they found a laboratory of movement. Inside, it was a different world, colorful mats, advanced homemade equipment, and dozens of kids with prosthetics and wheelchairs moving, dancing, and laughing. It wasn't chaotic, it was scientific. Diana walked over, no longer in a waitress uniform, but wearing professional athletic gear and holding a clipboard. "You came," she said, not looking up from her charts. "Welcome to Freedom Steps." Richard looked around, confused. You run this. Yesterday you were serving salad." Diana looked him in the eye. "I serve salad to pay the rent, Mr. Montgomery, but my degree is from Harvard. I have a master's in neuroscience, specializing in neuroplasticity and motor learning." The camera zoomed in on Richard's shocked face as the realization hit him. Diana continued, "I developed a protocol proving that autonomy heals the brain faster than dependency. I applied for a grant from your foundation 3 times. Your team rejected me every time. They said I lacked institutional backing." Richard stammered, I never saw the proposal." Diana replied coldly, "Of course not. You only see what's at eye level, and you don't look down." She pointed to the mat where Lucas had already joined the other children. He wasn't wearing his heavy braces. He was trying to balance on one leg, wobbling violently. Richard panicked. "What are you doing?" "Where are his braces? He can't stand without them." He ran forward as Lucas fell hard onto the mat with a thud. "Lucas!" Richard shouted, but Diana grabbed his arm with incredible strength. "Stop! Don't you dare pick him up!" Richard struggled against her grip. "Let go of me, he's hurting." Diana held firm. "He is learning. If you pick him up now, you teach him that he is helpless. Look at him, Richard, look." Richard froze and watched. Lucas was on the floor, crying, but he wasn't looking for help. He was gritting his teeth. He pushed his hands into the mat, his muscles shaking with effort. Slowly, painfully, he pushed himself up. He stood, alone. In that moment, Richard didn't see a disabled child. He saw a warrior. For the first time, he realized that his protection had been a prison. Lucas beamed, sweat dripping down his face. "Dad, look, no hands." Suddenly, the warehouse doors burst open. Flashbulbs exploded as 20 reporters swarmed in with cameras. "Mr. Montgomery, is it true you're partnering with Freedom Steps?" one shouted. "Are you finally funding the project you rejected?" asked another. Richard's face hardened. He turned to Diana, whispering furiously, "You set me up this. This was a trap. You used my son for a PR stunt." Diana leaned in, her voice low and intense. "I used the only leverage I had to save these kids. This program runs on fumes. We close next week without funding." Richard snarled, "I should destroy you." Diana didn't flinch. "Go ahead, walk out, tell the cameras you don't care, confirm everything they think about the cold-hearted Richard Montgomery, or be the father your son sees right now." Richard looked at the exit, then at Lucas. Lucas was surrounded by other kids, looking at his dad like he was a superhero. If Richard left now, he would break his son's heart forever. Richard loosened his $5,000 tie and walked toward the microphones. The room went silent. Diana held her breath. "I want to make a statement," Richard announced. A reporter asked, "Why are you here in the Bronx, sir?" Richard looked at Diana, then at Lucas. "I'm here because I was wrong." The crowd gasped. Richard Montgomery never admitted he was wrong. "For 2 years, I thought fixing my son meant buying the best doctors. I was wrong. The best medicine is dignity. The Montgomery Foundation is hereby granting Freedom Steps a check for $5 million, effective immediately." Cheers erupted in the warehouse. Diana covered her mouth, tears forming in her eyes. "On one condition," Richard added loudly. "Ms. Johnson runs it, no board interference. She leads, we follow." 6 months later, a gleaming new building opened in Manhattan, the Freedom Steps Center for Neuro-Rehabilitation. They say money changes people, but sometimes people change money. Inside the beautiful center, Richard stood in the back watching Lucas walk with a cane but upright and fast across the room. Diana walked up to him with 2 glasses of champagne. "He's getting fast," she said with a smile. Richard smiled back, a genuine expression that softened his face. "He takes after his mother. Thank you, Diana." She looked surprised. "For what?" Richard watched his son wave at him. "For forcing me to watch him fall. It was the hardest thing I ever did, and the best." Richard Montgomery lost his arrogance that day, but he got his son back. He learned that true power isn't about controlling the world. It's about empowering others to stand on their own. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel because sometimes the longest journeys begin with a single, clumsy step.